I'm just a girl from Queens who grew up with a lot of financial struggle in my household, and I was very curious about how people made money. And so I was like, I just asked everybody that I could see who had any kind of money, how do you do that? What do y'all do? I would just be so curious, because I wanted to know, how do you get to financial security? And so I was curious about it, and you know, it's hilarious that I now teach about money, because I was the poster child for what not to do. I had bad credit. I had a 400 and something credit score.
Wow. That's pretty,
for a long time.
Wow.
I used to be the person who, every time I put my card down, I'd be like, please God, don't let it, please don't let it decline.
Yep.
So we have something called The Club. We Should All Be Millionaires, The Club.
Yeah.
And I created it to create a community of people where we're not the only, right? Where you can become a member, you can be queer and be a member, where you can be a Black person and be a member, you can be a person of color, you can be someone living with a disability or a chronic illness, and you're building your business.
Hey, wait. I know you want to watch this next video, but listen, if you are an entrepreneur, business coach, business consultant, or a small business owner who has a story and wants to learn how to create multiple streams of income from your story, I need you to text me right now, my book, to 646-687-4152. That is my personal number. I have been an author for over 12 years. I've written 10 books. 4 of them have been bestsellers, and I've sold over 100,000 books. But I've also helped a lot of my clients take their expertise and put it into a story, then create multiple streams of income from that. So I want to help you do the same thing. So text my book to 646-687-4152. All right, let's go back to the video. All right, so welcome to another awesome episode of Inside the Vault with Ash Cash, the greatest money mindset show on the planet. When I tell you, this is the show that you need to watch, you need to tell your friends, you need to share this, you need to pay attention, get a notepad, because we are going to give you tangible ways to become a millionaire. See, one of the things that you hear all the time, people talk about making millions in their cars and their boats and all this stuff, but they try to allure you with all of their things, but they don't give you practical advice. But I have somebody here who will give you practical advice on how to become a millionaire. In fact, she wrote the book, We Should All Be Millionaires. She's a CEO, she's a mother, she's a wife, she's a self-made multi-millionaire. We have Mrs. Rachel Rodgers in the building with us. How you doing, Miss Rachel?
Listen, that intro, I feel amazing.
As you should, because it's so funny, because we're inside the vault, but we're inside your vault today.
Yes.
We're on your 68-acre property, and when I tell you, when I pulled up, shout out to our guy Sean, right? I'm talking to Sean, and he said, when you get to the cul-de-sac, you go this way, and I'm like, all right, bet. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, he means when I get to the address, to the property, I'm gonna go inside the property, and there's a cul-de-sac in the property. He's like, nah, I'm talking about the actual cul-de-sac. Like there's different properties. Like she owns all of that. I said, whoa. And so it's refreshing to see somebody who's regular.
Yes.
Regular, right? And so behind the scenes, right, I said the goal of this show is to make you seem regular.
Yes.
And what I want to clarify in that is, unfortunately, in our community, in our culture, regular is paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
Regular is trying to figure things out, government job.
Mm-hmm. Don't forget overdraft bank account. That used to be my regular.
Right? And so now seeing somebody who, we actually have similar backgrounds, right?
Yes.
Low income housing, working our way up to becoming, millionaires. And I need that to be regular, right?
Yes.
I need everybody watching to, wherever you are, becoming a millionaire, multi-millionaire, owning acres of land, having time freedom. I need that to be regular. So that's my goal for this show.
Yes.
But before we even go there,
I first of all, I can't agree with you more.
Yes,
And
yes.
that's why I wrote my book, We Should All Be Millionaires, because I truly believe that.
Yeah.
And I had to fight with my publisher for the title. They wanted me to change it to Millionaire Mindset. I'm like, no.
Nah.
Nope.
Exactly.
We're trying to create a movement here.
Exactly. A movement where,
Yes.
again, people, like, that's the norm.
Yes.
But in your words, who is Rachel Rodgers?
A lot of financial struggle in my household, and I was very curious about how people made money. And so I was like, I just asked everybody that I could see who had any kind of money, how do you do that? What do y'all do? I would just be so curious, because I wanted to know, how do you get to financial security? And so I was curious about it, and you know, it's hilarious that I now teach about money, because I was the poster child for what not to do. I had bad credit. I had a 400 and something credit score.
Wow. That's pretty
for a long time.
Wow.
I used to be the person who, every time I put my card down, I'd be like, please God, don't let it, please don't let it decline.
Yep.
All the time. And so that's where I came from.
Yeah.
And I just decided that I didn't want to be struggling anymore.
Yeah.
I decided that I was going to find a way, and I was going to keep trying until I made it. And
Yeah.
and that's what happened. And I'm still me. I'm still the person from Flushing, Queens,
Yep.
right? Like, that hasn't changed. I mean, things have changed.
Right,
The experience has
absolutely.
changed.
Yeah.
But I'm still that person. And so for me, I believe that entrepreneurship is a vehicle for people to build real wealth.
Yeah.
And it is how we're going to close the racial wealth gap, the gender wealth gap. And so to me, like, I want to teach as many people as possible how to do what I did. Because if
Yeah.
I could do it, other people could do it. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know you're supposed to have a mailing list. I didn't know that in the
Yeah.
beginning. I didn't know any of these things.
Yeah.
And I just figured it out slowly but surely. And so now I know how to do it. So I want to teach people how to do it faster than I did.
Yeah, and I love that. And one of the things I feel like is unique about you is like you have you don't even like six figures. Like you repel six figures. You like six figures what, right? and you made it a mission of yours, right? And that's why it's intentional. We should all be millionaires. And even as somebody who, my background, I was a banker. I was making six figures, high six figures. I lived in New York. I felt broke.
Yes.
And so talk about why everybody who's watching this, if you have in your head that I just want to be a six-figure earner, or I want to make six figures, why is that why is that low? Why should you eradicate that thought and focus on seven figures and above?
Yes. Well, there are actual studies that show that people who earn six figures, and not even in just big cities, like we know New York and San Francisco and certain cities are very expensive to live in, right? But I'm talking about people who live in like a small city in Tennessee, right? Like throughout the country, when you make $100,000, on average, people who make $100,000 have a $2,000 of disposable income each year.
Wow.
That means that they are $2,000 away from an emergency happening and obliterating their finances, right? Like the margin is so thin, right, that they're just barely getting by. So even as a six-figure earner, I remember I was doing an internship for the public defender's office in San Jose one summer. This was while I was in law school. One summer I went there, and I had a roommate who worked for PayPal, and she was making six figures, and she could not afford a home, and she was single, no kids.
Wow.
She was making between 100 and 200,000, and she could not afford to buy a home, like even just a condo, an apartment, nothing. So I think that being able to be middle class and living a comfortable middle class life, even six figures is not enough typically.
Yeah.
Once you throw in kids, the cost of childcare, all of these costs are rising, and I think the reality is six figures is really truly not enough.
Yeah.
Like just hitting that mark, and even entrepreneurs that I know that make 200,000, 300,000 a year, they are spending so much in taxes, team members. Once you finish paying all the business expenses, there's not much left, right? And so I'm like, listen, if you can make $100,000, y'all, you can make $1 million. I promise you, it is not that far, right? Right now I'm running a business. Last year we did 10 million. This year we'll do more than that. I already know this is a $100 million business.
Yeah.
It will be within a couple of years. I think we'll get there faster than it took me to get that first million, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, if you can make 100,000, you can make $1 million. So why not go for that?
Yeah.
And here's the thing, we have to go for that, especially as marginalized people, right? Like we have a duty for the people who can't, right? There are some of us who can't. And so if they can't, then we need to earn it so that we can give back, so that we can support, we can provide workplaces where they can feel seen and, you know, make a good salary and have good benefits, and get profit sharing, participate in the growth of the company. Like we can provide those workplaces that we used to look for that we couldn't find. We can provide that. So I think we have a duty, if we are capable, we have a duty, right, to do that so that we can give back and help others, and we could do our part to close the wealth gap, and we could do our part to move this generation forward, right? Like we may not see all the fruits of our labor, but let's make our lifetimes worthwhile. You know?
And I love that, right? And that spoke to me on so many different levels, because I agree where, you know, we've been given an opportunity, right? This time, I believe, is the easiest time for you to become a millionaire.
Are you kidding?
Multi-millionaire. Like really, like we see these memes and these quotes saying, I'm a generational curse breaker. Like this is that time.
Yes.
Like right now. And so 2 things, right? How do you, especially for those who don't come from money.
Yep.
How do you wrap your head around this new identity of being a millionaire, where that's not what you were told, that's not what you believe? It's to the point where even in marketing, like in circles where someone may be talking about millionaire, and people say, no, don't say that because people can't wrap their head around being a millionaire.
Yes.
So only promote 6 figures. Don't say millionaire. How do you help someone who doesn't come from money, who comes from a low income background, has never saw any success? How do you prepare their mind to receive this identity of a millionaire?
Yes. And it is an identity shift.
Yeah.
And that's why the last thing that I want to do is not talk to them about it, right?
Yeah.
And so I've had people say that to me, like, well, millionaire is just so far-fetched. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to just keep saying it until it's not far-fetched, right? Let's normalize it, right? Let's talk about it. And that's why, you know, I created my podcast. Everything that I do at Hello 7 is really designed to normalize it, right? So that I'm not the only example, but there's so many other people who are also building 7-figure businesses, who are also regular schmegular, right? And they're making it happen. And so it is a mindset shift. I think the important thing is to actually talk about it. And then the thing for me is I always make them do the math. And so one of the first things that I do with my clients is I'll say, like, all right, I want you to create your $1 million vision, right? And this is a chapter in the book as well. And so I want you to lay out, what is it, like we have this idea of what it's like to live like a millionaire, right? Who knows how much it costs, right? Like maybe it's $1 million, maybe it's less than that. So like just, what do you want? And so for me, what I wanted was I wanted a home for my children that was bigger. I wanted them to have a backyard and space to run around. That was important to me. I wanted to afford the extracurricular activities. I wanted to be able to sign them up for violin and sign them up for tennis and all the things that, like, at a certain time in my life, I was, you know, I couldn't afford it. And so like it was extracurriculars. It was taking care of my mother. It was, you know, having an investment account so that I felt like I had a safety net. Yeah, you know, I wanted a nicer car too, because I had I was driving a silver minivan for the longest, 7 long years in that minivan. Listen, we bought a new house and I was like, this minivan don't match my new house, so it gotta go. Okay, but 7 years I drove that minivan, so I wanted to be cool and not in a minivan anymore. But you know, though, I just wrote down, I wanted to be able to go on vacation, so I wrote down, what is it that I want? And then I actually did the math. So I went on Realtor to live in the neighborhood that I want. What does a house cost? Let me do the mortgage calculator. How much is a mortgage every month? Okay, $5,000 a month for $1 million house. Okay, cool. Let me add that to my monthly. Okay, what else do I want? I want extracurricular for my kids. That's another $1,000 a month. Okay, let me add it, right? Private school, add it, right? My mom's rent, add it, right? Add everything up. What is the monthly cost of the lifestyle that you want? And literally just do the math. And so I did the math and I found, like, oh, if I made $30,000 more a month, which is a lot, $30,000 more a month, and at the time I think I was making like $12,000 a month. If I made $30,000, so I would have to more than double what I'm currently making, I could have everything that I want. And so I'm like, all right, bet. Now I know the number. Now I have a target, and I also have a why connected to that target. And so now the next thing I'm gonna do is brainstorm. Okay, what's 25 ways that I could increase my income, right? And just like, how can I use my skill set? What could I buy? Could I buy an investment property, right? Like, what are the different moves that I can make? And just write a list. And it doesn't matter how practical it is, just write the list.
Yeah.
Some of those ideas will be terrible. Some of them will be good. And some of them you can act on immediately, right? And so you take immediate action. So one of the things that I did at the time was I was running a law practice, right? So it was all time for money, you know, it was like billable hours, right? So you get a new client and like, great, now I got a whole lot of work to do, right? With varying profitability, depending on what I was doing for them. And so one of the things that I did was say to myself, okay, well, I have a lot of people coming to me who are new entrepreneurs because there's a recession. All these people got severance packages. They're starting their own businesses, but they can't afford to hire me as their attorney yet. Okay, but I have all these contract templates and I have all these tools that I use in my practice. Let me package them together with some advice and with some videos that walk you through how to fill them out and like written content that walks you through it, and then package that up and sell that. And that way I could sell it. And my time, like once I sold it, I made the money. I don't got to do nothing else because the work's already done.
That's good.
And so I did that, right? And so that started generating, that increased my income. And literally that is how I got to that $30,000 a month. I just kept going. And then one day I woke up and I was like, oh, I'm here. I need to create a new list. I got everything on this list. You know, and then I created a new list. I'm about to do another one.
Right. And so if I hear you correctly, the first step for anybody is to almost get out of your head, right? In order to mentally get yourself in a space of identity or accepting the millionaire identity, get out of your head, put it on paper and see what it is.
Because the truth, numbers.
Right, because the truth of the matter, if you look at it, if it's $42,000 a month,
right,
times 12, what's that? 420, that's $500,000. So you don't even need the $1 million, right? That's $500,000 to live like what you thought a millionaire would live like. And so number one is getting that, you know, identity down, writing it down and knowing what it takes. And then, you know, what do you say to that person? You know, because a majority of our insiders, those who watch Inside the Vault are insiders. Majority of them are high earners, so they make a lot of money, but they don't, you know, they're exchanging time for money,
right?
And they want to get to a space where, or they're looking at what you're saying, like, oh, that's great,
yes.
But I work 40 hours. I have a lot of, you know, I don't have a lot of time. How do you shift? How do you take that transition? Because like you as an attorney, to now say, hey, I'm going to start coaching people on business. Like talk about your transition and how can someone who's in that current space of, you know, exchanging time for money transition to that space where they're not exchanging time for money?
Well, first of all, it starts with desire, like we just talked about, knowing what you actually want. Because I think what we do is say, well, everyone says I should shoot for 6 figures, so let me shoot for that. Or now they're saying 7 figures, so I should. Well, how about you just figure out what you want, right? Which is what we just talked about, right? Figuring out what do you want and having the number. Then once you have that number, then you start looking at, okay, what are the assets that I have that can help me make that happen. So it could be, I have certain skill sets, right? So if you're a high earner, what are you doing in your day job, right? What's that skill that you're doing in your day job? Can you create a course, right? Like I was at a speaking gig recently and I was talking to a young woman who works for a corporation where she does sales. And I'm like, you know who needs to learn how to do sales? A whole lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, right? So like, could you create a sales training that's a course, right? Because she had the same problem. I work 40 hours, I travel a lot for work, they're sending me all over the country. And so I'm like, great, you know what I would do? I would do a little workshop every time I was somewhere that the company sent me, right? Because I got there for free, right? On their dime, add a day, do a workshop, right? Add a little bit of extra income that's on sales, or record that online course and make it so that somebody could buy it anytime and all you have to do is promote it every now and then, right? So that you just start getting creative. I think we just decide it's not possible. And so we create a ceiling for ourselves and say, well, it's not possible. And so therefore I'm not even gonna bother trying because it's not possible. And I'm saying, no, it is possible. And so you got to get your brain into a space of creativity and possibility. Like we cut our dreams off, right? Because we immediately say, well, this is what I want, but there's no way I can afford that. So forget it, right? Forget about the how. We're not doing how yet. We're doing what? What do we want, right? Once we know what we want, then we can say, okay, here's what I want. I believe that I can get there. And now how do I get there, right? And start crafting the how and allow yourself to figure that out over time. And like you said before, we have all the tools available to us.
Right.
We have the internet, we have books, we have all these online courses. You could get an MBA for, $29.95, right? These days online, right?
Yeah.
And so like we have so many resources available to us, podcasts.
Yeah.
And this is part of it. One of the things that I tell people all the time is you have to foster belief, right? So it's like, how do I believe? I need to believe. And I don't believe in the just sort of like, well, just believe, right? Like the answer is not the same as the question, right? So to me, you can foster belief. And how I do that, and I do that to this day, is every time I'm in the car driving, I'm listening to something like this, right? I'm listening to a podcast.
Yeah.
I'm listening to an audiobook, or I'm listening to a training or a speaker that I like, that I want to learn from, right? Every time I'm walking on the treadmill, I'm listening to a course or listening to something. I'm constantly pouring in belief by what I expose myself to. I have also curated my Instagram feed, right? I curate my social media feeds. I want to hear from the kinds of people that foster that belief in me. Yeah. I don't want people who are constantly, everything snarky or everything sarcasm and you don't believe, right? And so I don't want that in my ear all the time. I don't want that negativity in. Your brain is your most important asset.
100%.
You have to protect it. You can't just let anything in. Even on Netflix, right? If I'm start a show and I see it's gonna be super negative and it's like I feel bad after I watch it, I'm not watching that no more. You know what I mean? Like I don't need to put myself through that, right? Like how can I watch things, documentaries, shows, whatever.
Even the news, turn the news off.
I was watching some design program and it was a woman who was saying that she, started out in her little, garage, and now she's got a design firm with 90 employees. And she said that, and I was like, I'm gonna have 90 employees.
Facts, yeah.
You just need to see it,
Absolutely.
right? You just need to, and so how can you foster that all the time and you start thinking that way because you're pouring that in, right? What comes in comes out, right? And so, and that means also you might have to curate your friends, right? Like if Brenda is always telling you a sad story, only call Brenda once a month. Stop talking to her every day. You know what I mean? We love Brenda, but we can't be talking to her all day, every day.
But how do you do that when that could potentially be like your significant others? 'Cause I know somebody right now is watching. They're like, well, Brenda, I'm married to Brenda, or right? Like, so how do you create that environment where it might be your coworker, it might be your significant other, it might be somebody that's in your space that you just can't really get rid of that easy?
Yes. I have to tell you, one of the things that I have noticed in my programs is that the people in my program who have a partner who does not believe and who is constantly telling them that, they move so much slower than the people who have a supportive partner. It's just the truth. And so what I always tell my clients, I've recorded a couple of episodes with my husband and talking about marriage and entrepreneurship, because it's not easy. Like entrepreneurship can be hard on a marriage, right? You have to work that out. And I think that it's important that you go to your partner and be vulnerable with them and say, this is my dream and I need you to support me. Or at a minimum, just stop being negative. You know what I mean? Just let me do my dream, right? Like I can't have you in my ear every day making me feel like it's not possible, because I believe that it is, and I want you to support me in giving it a shot.
That's good.
And just have a real honest conversation with your partner about it. And I think, and also, listen to some podcasts with entrepreneurial couples together, right? And be inspired by that. But really talk about whatever the real issue is. And usually it's fear. Usually it's just that your partner is afraid. And so how can you address those fears, or how can you negotiate to say, all right, we're gonna have this much in the savings and I'm not gonna touch that for my business. Like that's our safety net, but over here, I'm gonna do my thing over here, right? So like negotiate, compromise, and come up with a solution that makes you both win. But I think you have to have really, truly honest conversations. Because I think that it's a real threat to a long-term partnership to have somebody who doesn't believe in your dreams.
100%. And so talk to us about your program and the success that's within your program, right? Because, we started earlier, talking about making being a millionaire, the identity of a millionaire, regular. And, a lot of times when you get to that status, people start to have amnesia about where you come from, right? They're like, well, you had, no, I didn't. Well, but it's because, no. But they start to have amnesia. And so now there's this sort of like, well, you could do it, but I can't, because they're fighting their limitations. But you've created a program where you're helping regular, everyday people become millionaires. And I know you have a few stories of people who have actually have done it where their life has totally changed. Talk to us about that a little bit.
Yes. So we have something called the club. We Should All Be Millionaires, the club.
Yeah.
And I created it to create a community of people where we're not the only, right? Where you can become a member, you can be queer and be a member, where you can be a Black person and be a member, you can be a person of color, you can be someone living with a disability or a chronic illness, and you're building your business, right? And building a platform for yourself, or you're on your entrepreneurial journey, and you're not the only. Because I have joined for 12 years, right? I was joining so many different communities, and I was always the only. I was the only Black woman, and I'm biracial. How am I the only Black woman in here? I'm pissed, right? Like, that ain't gonna work. And not only that, but like, there was barely any women, there were barely any people of color, and I'm like, this can't be it. And what that does is that doesn't foster belief within us, right? It makes us think that, oh, this kind of success is only for white people. It's not for us. And so I wanted to have a community of people where that's all it is, right? It's like all of us have challenges that we have to overcome. We've all been historically excluded from, participating in building wealth in a variety of ways. And it is systemic, right? And so how can we overcome that and win anyway, even though society is designed for us to lose, right? And so that's what I wanted. I wanted a community where we can constantly reinforce to each other, of course you can do it. Of course you're talented. Of course you have what it takes, right? And where we can share resources and we can refer to each other. We can hire each other. It's basically an economy, right? It's an ecosystem where we can support each other and we can learn the things that we don't know so that we can grow. And we have a step-by-step pathway that we teach. And so we have so many success stories that come out of there. One of them that comes to mind is a client who started with us 2 years ago, and she was working a corporate job, and she was like, that exact scenario, I'm working full-time. Her son is autistic, and she wanted to be able to stay home with him. She wanted more flexibility so she could be with her son whenever she needed to. And so she decided to start this side hustle. And she started the side hustle and created a brand around it and basically did everything I told her to do, literally. And those are my favorite clients. They just listen.
Exactly, absolutely.
Stop doing it the hard way.
Exactly.
I did it the hard way, so you don't have to do it the hard way. Why are you choosing to make it hard? And so she just listened to the advice and to the coaching, showed up to everything, right? And just was all in. And literally that same year, by the end of the year, she quit her job. Had replaced her income already. Now she's at $500,000 in annual revenue. Like a year after
From home.
Yeah, so like she was still working her job for 6 months. So I think she's like 18 months to 24 months into her entrepreneurial journey. She's already quit her job and making $500,000 a year with flexibility.
Wow, that's a blessing.
Yes.
And I want to talk about your 5-day challenge for a second because anybody who watches the show knows that, I'm a big fan of the 5-day challenge model because it gets to, remove all the fakes and the frauds and all that stuff. I have no problem saying it because I think that during the pandemic, and y'all heard me say this before, but during the pandemic, all of these gurus just popped up out of nowhere. And they created a bad taste around course selling and entrepreneurship because what they did was they were great marketers. They didn't know anything. They were great marketers and they marketed their way to millions of dollars and they put a bad taste on people, on how people looked at this education space. And so when the 5-day challenge model came out, I said, yes. Because you could fake 1 hour on a webinar, right? You could recite Jim Rohn quotes and Les Brown quotes all you want for an hour. You can't do it for 5 days.
Listen.
You cannot fake for 5 days.
At the end of a challenge, so I do 12 hours of coaching when I do a challenge. Right? So that is a lot of time that I'm saying, you're going to know me and I'm going to know you at the end of it. And also, you're going to know, like I said, boundaries. I expect you to put in work. Right? And I expect you to be somebody that keeps your word to yourself. Decide that you're going to be that person today. And that's what I tell people right at the beginning of the challenge. You got to put in work. I'm going to tell you what to do, and then you got to go do it. That's how this works. I am not going to do it for you because that's a different fee and it's much higher than what you're paying. And that's the other thing though too, right? They get 12 hours of your time for nothing, right? Like VIP $297, general admission, like that's nothing
compared to what your billable hours really are.
Correct.
Right?
I have no problem. My mastermind costs $100,000 a year.
Yes.
You know?
Right.
And it's worth every single penny.
Yeah.
You know, and my masterminders will be the first to tell you that.
Yep.
So this is a steal.
Yeah.
And it's a huge opportunity that should be taken advantage of. Listen, when somebody has the way they've done it, you want to learn from them.
Yeah.
And also you want to learn from people who do have what you want.
Absolutely.
Like for me, part of the reason why I do this also is because when I was coming up, it was like nothing but like young white guys that like lived in Thailand. And that was their solution. Go move to Thailand. Start a business from there. Your expenses will be really low. You know what I mean? And like you know, live like a nomad or whatever. And I was like, I got kids. What is that? I can't do that. Right? And there was just like, I didn't have examples to look to. And that made me really sad. You know? So I'm like, no. I want to be an example. And then I want to create as many examples as possible for people to see. Right? And so that's why I do it. And that's why we do the challenge. And trust me, my team is like, why are we doing this again? I mean, they enjoy it as well, but it's a lot of work.
100%.
But it's a labor of love because we want to give back. And honestly, by the end of the week, I mean, everybody's in tears. My team's in tears. The whole community, everybody on the Zoom is in tears. Like we're all crying because people have just made so much progress. It is bananas. Something about that container is incredible to see. Like when you have, again, that input, that positive input every day. You know, for 2 hours a day if you're VIP, right? For a week. You're just a different person by the end of the week. Like you want to take that identity on, that's a great way to do it. You spend 5 days and it's like a one-time investment that you make to yourself to show up and to not only to pay for the ticket price, which is so reasonable, but to also show up. And you know, you get incredible results. Like it's amazing to see. And it's all about making money moves. Like I expect you to make money moves and I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do. And I'm pointing out to people, listen, we all have the ability to make so much more money. We are leaving money on the table. The money that we have in our pocket is because that's what we believe we have the capacity to have. But we can have a different capacity. And that's what I'm trying to do with this challenge is expand your capacity for more. Right? And show you all of the ways that there's money in your personal life right now. Listen, the most funny thing, I'm doing this interview soon, and one of the producers, I was telling her about the challenge that I'm going to do, and I was just giving her one bit of advice, just telling her about the challenge. She was like, I'm gonna take you up on that. She went and did it, made $4,500.
Wow.
And this is, we weren't even in the challenge yet. I'm just talking to her about the challenge. And I was just like, listen, that is the power.
Absolutely.
And I think when we come together as a community to support each other, to support each other's dreams, right? If your spouse is not supportive, cool, come here. We will support you.
Absolutely.
Right? We will lift you up.
And you know, that's a good point though too, because sometimes your spouse isn't supportive because you haven't given your spouse a reason to be supportive.
Let's be clear about that.
So right?
Yes.
So sometimes it's easy to be like, well, my spouse is not supporting me, but well, this is your 10th idea, right? So sometimes, you know, your spouse isn't supporting you because you haven't given them a reason to. And so if they get into a community, right? Like you want your spouse to be supportive, you know what? You get into a community where in that community, you get the support that you need. And now you show, all right, bet, look, I've been able to do this. And then now you come to your spouse like, yo, look, I'm up. Now I need your support. Now, you know, your spouse is going to be like, all right, let's go.
Exactly. How are you putting in work, right? To make it easy for them to support you, right? Like I'm somebody that's good to bet on. You know why? Because you know I'm going to put in work, right? Like I'm not going to dial it in. I'm not going to play it safe. I'm going to go all in and give it everything that I've got. And you have to be that person as well if you want people to believe in you. And people will start to believe in you when you decide to believe in you 100%. And you start showing up differently. That's what's going to happen. It happens at the end of the challenge. They just like, listen, my husband used to say this. Now he's saying this, right? Because it's just how your posture's different, right? Like what you're talking about is different, how you're carrying yourself is different, and so now it's easier for people to believe in you. But the same is true for customers, right? I have people tell me all the time, well, I tried to sell my stuff, no one wants to buy it, and I'm like, okay, well, what did you do to try? Like, I've tried everything. Okay, well, list out for me everything.
Yeah.
Make a list. I
Right.
want to hear everything
Right.
that you did.
Right.
What does everything entail?
Right.
And it's like, well, I sent an email and I did an Instagram post, and I'm like, okay, well, that's not even,
not everything.
that ain't even the beginning,
Right,
let
right,
alone
right,
everything.
right.
That ain't nowhere near,
Right.
right? Like the work that you have to put in work.
Yeah.
If you want the results, then the only way we make something out of nothing is effort in the beginning.
100%.
It doesn't have to be, it's not going to be brute force forever, but in
Yeah.
the beginning, you have to put in that work to make something happen.
Yeah.
And the hard work is not even hours, right? It's not 16-hour days. People think the hard work is I need to sit at my desk and just like go for 12 hours. No, what you need to do is sit at your desk and do the hardest thing. Ask for the sale. First thing.
Yeah.
Send the email and pitch the person.
Yeah.
Do the hard thing,
Right.
right? Instead of creating just, a million Instagram posts. Awesome, I love that. But you already know 12 people who could be customers. Email them directly.
Right,
Why
yeah.
are you trying to find a pin out of a, a
yeah.
needle in a haystack,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
When you could just go directly to the person who already knows, likes, and trusts you
Yeah.
and ask them for the sale.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I like about your 5-day challenge is that, not only are they spending, 12 hours with you when they do VIP, and they get access to what's worked for you.
Yes.
But also, I think a lot of people who are entrepreneurs, work a 9 to 5, they do a lot of busy work,
Yes.
but they're not making money moves. And I think
Correct.
that your emphasis on money moves specifically, like here are some specific things that you can do that are money generating, income generating activities
Yes.
that can actually help your bottom line. And that if you listen, right, that's the important thing too. Because
Right.
a lot of people join challenges or programs and they don't listen. They try to add their spin on
Yes.
what you're teaching them. But if your spin worked, then you wouldn't need
You don't need me.
Exactly. And so for the person watching right now, give me like 3 like tangible things somebody could do to go from where they are right now
Yes.
to that $1 million, person, that identity.
Yes. So one of the things that I tell people to do, like once you've created that vision and we start ideating what ideas do we have, is study yourself, right? Become a student of who you are. And so that includes doing assessments like DISC or Colby, or taking some of these different assessments that are out there. Take stock of your work experience and what you've done. Think about what did you always be known for as a child? Like I was always loud, now I get paid to talk,
Facts.
right? I have a feeling you were loud too.
You already look. That's why I looked at you. I was like,
Right? So like what were those things as a kid,
Yeah.
right? That people either always asked you for or looked to you for. And think about that. Like how can you use those things that are within you, your natural talents? We all have natural God-given talents that we can monetize, right? In a variety of ways. And so that's what I encourage people to do is get to know yourself so that you can choose a business model that's actually going to work for you.
Yeah.
Because I think too, people sort of think like, oh, this person's doing that, so I need to do that. Oh, this person's doing that, so I need to do that. And it's like shiny object syndrome and constantly switching.
Yes.
And I want you to use your internal compass to figure out what's right for you, because I don't believe in discipline, right? I believe in it.
Yeah, yeah.
I think discipline is important, but I don't think that you get to 7 figures with discipline and brute force. I think that requires more discipline than most of us have. Usually you're going to peter out before you ever make it.
Yeah.
So what I'd rather is that you choose something that you are excited about doing, and that, gets you up in the morning and gets you hyped when you imagine it, when you think about it, where you have a strong why as to why you want to do this. Well, I just want to make people laugh, right? Like that was Will Smith, what he talked about in his book. He was talking about as a child, he wanted to make people laugh because he grew up in a home where there was a lot of violence, right? And so it's just like, what is that thing for you that is that why for you? I think when you are connected to your why, and then you have a business model that's exciting for you, and that's built around your natural talents, right? Instead of creating a business model like for when I was running my law practice, right? I got close to 7 figures. I never hit it, and it required enormous amounts of discipline to do that work. Why? Because I was sitting behind a computer every day typing and editing contracts, right? Where like that's not where my talent. I belong in front of a group of
Absolutely.
people.
Yeah, 100%.
Like that's what I do,
Yeah.
right? And so that was the opposite of what made sense for me. And so it was so hard to grow it versus getting into a business model that is built around my natural skill set.
Yeah.
I mean, we took off instantly, right? Like we went from $1 million to $2 million, $2 million to 5, 5 to 10 in a very short period of time. because it's built around my talents. And so that's what I teach people how to do. How do you really lock in on what you are good at? Figure out who you are and what you're naturally gifted at. And here's the thing, we tend to undervalue our gifts.
Say that.
We think what I'm good at, you know, like everybody's good at. No, they're not.
Yeah, exactly. Facts, yeah.
You know, like I have a stylist, right? This is her talent.
Yeah.
Could I put together an outfit? Sure, but it's not my gift. It's not going to be something I'm going to be world class at, but it's something that she's amazing at, right? And so that's a natural talent that she's monetizing, right? And so we all have different gifts. And so look around and try to figure out what that is. And then you can start to think about, okay, well, what are the different ways that I can sell that, right? What are the different, and I think it's important to test in the early days. Try different things. Try different things and try different things that don't commit you to something for 2 years, right? Because people will be like, well, I just launched this 12-month program. And I'm like, well, now you stuck doing it for 12 months. Do you even like it?
Exactly,
You know? Let's try to, how about a one-day thing, a one-day workshop, right? Or test it out and just try different things and just be willing to risk your ego. If you are not risking your ego, you are not in the game, friend. You are not in the game.
That's a bar. If you're not risking your ego, you are not in the game. Expound a little more.
Because you're staying safe does not get you to a grown business, right? So you have to be willing to say, like, hey, I have this thing, do you want to come, right? Hey, I'm doing this event. You have to risk nobody's going to show up to your party, right? You have to risk nobody's going to buy your thing. You have to risk pitching yourself and somebody rejecting you and saying no. That's what's required for growth. That is the pathway to success. If you're not collecting no's, you are not on your way to success. You're staying safe, and safety means more of the same, right? So whatever you have now, you're going to continue to have if you continue the same behavior. You got to shift it, and you got to be willing to take those risks. So listen, you got to be willing to embarrass yourself publicly. You know, like that's what's required. And if that's too much for you, then this path maybe is not for you. But that's the thing you have to get comfortable with. So it's so funny because if you scroll back on my YouTube channel, I have YouTube videos from 2011 when I was starting my law practice, and I was told, do YouTube videos, they bring in clients. I'm like, okay, fine. So I'm literally on there whispering. Like I am whispering on these YouTube videos. Like, did I want nobody to hear me? Correct. I didn't want nobody to hear me. Because I was just feeling so self-conscious. But I just did it anyway. I was like, okay, this is what you got to do. I got kids to feed. I'm motivated. I got to do it. I did those videos. You know, those videos brought in so many clients over the years. Me whispering. You know what I mean? So like, just understand that where you're at right now is enough. Right? Like the version of you have right now is not the most confident version. Trust me, I was not this confident in the beginning. Go watch those videos. You will see. And I leave them up on purpose because I want people to see. Look at a recent video versus the one from 2011 where it's almost embarrassing. Right? But I'm like, nah, I'm going to keep it up. Because I want y'all to see the progress, right? And even that was enough to bring in clients and to support my family, right? And so where you're at right now is enough, right? Just get yourself out there, risk your ego, risk that somebody's going to say you look foolish on the YouTube video or on your reel or whatever it is that you're doing. Risk pitching yourself and somebody reject you. Listen, get good at not caring about rejection, right?
Yo, if that wasn't enough for you to spend 5 days with this lady, I promise you. Look, letsmakemoneymoves.com is where you need to be. Talk to that person because, like, you know, there's this imposter syndrome thing going on. And I heard a quote that one of your mentors told you, which was, you may not be experienced, but you are qualified. And that is so profound because I think a lot of people dumb themselves down or take less because they don't believe that they're experienced at the thing that they're trying to get other people to pay them for. But your mentor told you, look, forget about experience, you're qualified. Talk a little bit about that.
And this was when I was afraid to go. So I went solo and started my own practice right after law school. Because I graduated in the middle of the 2008 recession. And so there was not a lot of jobs available, and the ones that were available, I didn't want them, right? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go solo and start my own practice. But I had so much fear around that, right? Because I'm like, well, I'm a baby lawyer, right? What do I know? And I just talked to different mentors about it. And one of my mentors said to me, you may not be experienced, but you are qualified. You are qualified to practice law. You have passed the bar. You've gone through 3 years of law school. You know how to find the answer, even if you don't know the answer right away, right? And so I said, okay, cool. And so I just did it, right? I started a practice, and so I would have a client come in, and I would listen to their problem, and I'd say, okay, cool. Great. Yeah, I can solve that problem. And then I would call my mentor and be like, okay, here's the problem.
Right.
I think it's this. Is that the right answer?
Yeah.
And they would help me, right? And so I had a couple of mentors that I lined up because I wasn't joining a law practice where there'd be partners that, tell me what to do, right? And give me guidance over time. Like that was the model, but I didn't have that model available to me because those jobs weren't available. And so I chose myself, right? And I found my own mentors and I read books and I had the fear of God in me of doing it wrong, right? And so I feel like sometimes I love to hire a beginner even today because I'm like, beginners, they will work harder than the experienced ones because they don't want to get it wrong,
100%,
right?
yeah.
Like their reputation is on the line and they have so much fear about getting it wrong that they work harder often. And that's what I did. And so I learned that way and then I exposed myself to as much training as possible. I invested in training as much as possible so that I could get good at these different things. And I sure enough did. I got so good that it was like boring to me, right? 7 years later, it was like so easy to create these solutions for entrepreneurs. And I was like, I need something else to do.
Yeah. No, I love it. Listen, y'all, I need y'all to go. letsmakemoneymoves.com. Invest in yourself. Spend 5 days with Rachel Rodgers when she's going to teach you how to become a millionaire. My last question is around the feeling, or when you look at your life now, knowing where you come from, low income household, your mom having to, do tricks to make sure the lights stay turned on, like just knowing where you come from, and now being a multi-millionaire, owning 68 acres, making millions of dollars, helping other people make millions of dollars. How do you accept that identity without feeling guilty, right? This survivor's guilt, if you will.
Yes. Well, for me, I don't feel guilty. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
I worked hard for what I have. And then I also feel, and I truly believe that to whom much is given, much is required, right? So as part of accepting that identity of having wealth is also accepting the responsibility of serving others, right? With that wealth, using the money to serve the people, right? And so how can I do that? And so I look to do that. I try to not only just do it like I have a foundation that we raise money for to address the mortality rate for maternal health, especially among Black mothers. And so we provide childcare and doulas and night nurses to Black mothers in need. So that's what our foundation does. And we're just getting started there. There's so much more that we want to do. So to me, when people say like, oh, is there a limit to how much you want to make? No, I'm going to keep making money because I'm Black, right? My people need things.
Right.
So if I have the ability to earn more, I'm going to keep earning more so that I can keep giving back and increasing how much I can give. So I think it's part of it. But not only that, I want to build that give back into my business model. And I'm always fixing this and perfecting this even more. But like even within my own business, ensuring that I'm creating a place where I'm, we have profit sharing built into our culture, right? So that everybody on the team gets to participate in the profits that we are creating, which helps them to build wealth, right? If you're going to have a job, you want to have a job that's paying you profit sharing or commission because it's not just time for money, right? You're also getting paid beyond the hours that you're working. And so I wanted to create that model because that's what I would want, And so how can you build into your life and into your business different ways that you can be giving back and serving others, right? And there comes a point, here's the truth of the matter. I think that when you build wealth, right, at the beginning, you almost like wow out a little bit. Like, I'm going to invest in, and I didn't invest in anything stupid. I bought assets, right? I invested in real estate and I invested in, I'm an angel investor in multiple tech companies, right? Like I did that kind of thing. And then I got to a point where I was like, I'm done. Like, I just don't want anything else, right? And so now you have this, you hold on to your wealth. You have to manage your wealth in a certain way, right? But then you also have more to give back, right? Because you have more disposable income and less desire for things, right? And so because of that, you have all of this room to give and can find all of these different ways and different vehicles in which you can give. So I think that's a privilege and an opportunity. And honestly, I think the most valuable thing I have to give away is my skill set, right? I know how to build a multi-million-dollar business. I know how to build an 8-figure business. And so that's the skill that I want to teach other people as much as possible in different ways, through books for $20 for free, through my podcast, right? And, you know, through our various trainings as well. As like, as much as possible, I want to get this information out to people. Not only the information, but the coaching, the community, the support to actually make it happen. Because you can have the knowledge and do nothing with it, right? And so we have to figure out, coaching helps you understand, why am I doing nothing with it? I know what to do. Why am I not doing it? Let's get behind what the fear is. Let's dig into what the issue is and solve that so that you will go and do the things.
Yeah. Love it, y'all. Another awesome episode of Inside the Vault with Ash Cash. We are closing out the vault. Man, I promise you, go back. There was a lot of nuggets dropped on this show that if you don't pay attention, you're gonna miss it. If people wanted to connect with you, you know, how can they find you?
Yes. So my website is hello7.co. The number spelled out, not the number. So hello7.co. And then I'm Rodgers ESQ on Instagram, and you can listen to our podcast called the Hello 7 Podcast, and we're on YouTube as well, youtube.com/hello7.
All right, y'all. Listen, I need y'all right now. Hit the link in the description or go to letsmakemoneymoves.com. Spend 5 days with Rachel and the team. Learn how to make money moves. Learn how to stop trading your time for money and make money work hard for you. We are closing out the vault. Another awesome episode. I am Ash Cash. Make sure you visit me, IamAshCash.com. Follow me on all social media platforms at I am Ash Cash. Also, follow the show. Look, like, subscribe, rate Inside the Vault, and we are InsideTheVaultShow.com. I'm going to see you next time, in God's will, same time, same place. All right, y'all. Peace.